Hello, and welcome to Braunhaven. Today we're going to close out the Great Eastern Desert by talking about uh, the three major oases that dot the desert and keep the Bedouin tribes uh, running and watered. So, the El Rabarya Desert is home to many uh, signs of civilization from far before the reckoning, the reckoning having taken place 2,000 years ago, and the signs of these are evident in just the ruins that are accessed above the sands, and it is known that there are likely many more ruins beneath its sand. This was once a very fertile area, after all. But that's not to say that these civilizations are completely lost to time. The Bedouin tribes still actually worship the old gods. Possibly these gods are even older than the old faith itself, although scriptures will tell you from the old faith of the old gods that those gods were present and were the reason for creating the world. So whether or not these are the same gods, maybe under a different name, uh, is hard to determine. They do share many of the same aspects, and the Bedouin tribes mostly worship along the lines of elemental aspects. This has, of course, over the long length of time, has taken on aspects of other religions. The major part of that is that the Bedouin believe that there is a singular God that oversees everything. And this may have been an influence actually from the ancients before the reckoning. But the Bedouin tribes hold nothing more sacred than the three oases in the desert. It is these oases that supply them with water, food, uh, game to hunt, and these oases are quite vast. They are large bodies of fresh water that just appear to crop up in the middle of the sands. The first being the the Malmarud oasis in the north, and there are signs of habitation from before. There are the ruins that exist there. And then, of course, in the middle of the desert, you have the Seharana Oasis, which geographically is fairly close to the Ossetia jungle. It is just to the northeast. And uh, that particular oasis, there are no actual ruins above the sands, but there are signs that there may be something deep below the ground. And then the last oasis to the south is the Azaditra Oasis, and it is a common stopping point for many of the tribes, especially those that decide to travel the Eastern Tradeway in trade. Now, these three oases are treated as sacred locations. They are holy ground to the Bedouin, and it's really quite difficult to explain because their religion, as I said, it has the one overriding true God that rules over what may or may not be the old faith in an elemental fashion, but it's also mixed in with the genies that were brought in to the Arabashia region, which the Great Eastern Desert is a part of. And these genies began with the Ifrit that were brought in uh, because the archdevil that had taken over this portion of the known world uh, was not exactly in a strategic position to do so. And he didn't have the legions of devils and demons. He didn't have the hierarchical support of the nine hells to do what he did. And so his legions were quite small compared to the other two. He bolstered this fact by basically hiring Afridi mercenaries to work for him. And with the Afridi, when they came in, of course, that also brought in the opposite side, the jinn. Because the jinn were not going to stand by and allow the Afridi to rule over the prime plane. I don't necessarily know that this conflict is so much one of good and evil, as more opposed to two differing elements, one being air and one being fire. Um, they they just have opposing viewpoints, and I don't think it transcends into true aspects of good and evil. I think it goes much deeper than that. But these two genie forces really dominated the landscape, and it changed how the people worshipped. And so these genies and their elemental aspects are worshipped along with the other gods. And again, it's nebulous as to whether a name that they're invoking, as far as worship, is being invoked to a genie, or if it is being invoked to an old god with a different name, or maybe it's some creator god. Nobody can really decipher what it is. And for the to the Bedouins' point, there's no need to explain it. It just is. But these oases are considered their sacred ground, and each of these oases has a permanent encampment of the Bedouin that are. I mean, Bedouin, of course, are nomadic, but these are semi-permanent camps that are set up, and the people that live in these camps may change. They frequently get up and move, but the tents will stay there, and they are always replaced by another group, and it's always of their same tribe. And so there's these encampments at each of these oases, and they tend to, I guess, guard the oases from intruders. They don't stop anybody that needs to hunt or drink water, but they do, if they do find you in the oasis, they will generally warn you to not take more than you need. And as far as the ruins in the oases, if any ruins are found there, those are pretty much considered off limits without the express permission of the tribe that permanently encamped there. The Bedouin do have one other encampment just to the southwest of Tal Afatra, and it's not an oasis, but it is a semi-permanent structure on the trail that leads to Tal Afatra. Now, it isn't just the ruins that are beneath the sands that are signs of the ancient civilizations before the reckoning. There are two communities, two. Well, one is a community, one is its own nation state, uh, that are said to have hearkened back to these ancient civilizations, and they are more or less living um, as their ancestors did, as closely as they could possibly mimic. The first of those is, of course, Tal Afatra and the Sarputian Mountains. Um, they are said to be um, living a lifestyle that was common over 2,000 years ago. Whether or not that's true is hard to tell, because recorded history didn't start until the reckoning, and and really anything leading up to probably 600 years ago, or 800 years ago, is going to be considered uh, myth and legendary. There is some truth to things that happened after the reckoning, as to whether or not those are completely true or fanciful tales is very difficult to say. But recorded history, as such, didn't begin until the reckoning, and before that, everything is up in the air. There's not even very many myths or legends. But here in the El Rabarya Desert, and specifically at Tal Afatra, there are many legends and tales, and those are treated as holy scripture as well. And Tal Afatra is a they are a theocracy. Mostly, this is a the same Bedouin people rule Tal Afatra, but it is a conglomeration of all the tribes meet here. It is a very permanent structure. It is a walled city with keeps and of the nature that you would find in the Middle East. And Tal Afatra can be considered a caliphate, but not to the regard that they claim all of the El Rabarya Desert as their own. Rather, they are a caliphate and they rule over the land, but they're they're not strong enough, or really they have no desire to expend the energy to keep anybody out. But they are Tal Afatra as a caliphate is recognized by Arabashia. The city does have its own pasha, and they are recognized. But their pasha is he's a very religious man. He is a cleric and rules the country, or rules the caliphate from a cleric standpoint. It this differing religion can feel very alien to anybody that is not from the region. If you are from the West, even as close as the Eastern Plains, um, this religion that they follow would be considered very alien. The other location that still follows much of the old ways is the Trepane City States. Now, this Trepane City States exists on an archipelago at the southern edge of the Russian Gulf in the Adriatic Sea. And on the east side is the Adriatic Sea. On the west side of the Russian Gulf, of course, is the Dragon Sea. And the Trepane City States, it is believed that this archipelago was populated shortly after the great upheaval that was caused by the Reckoning. Of course, the collision of the planes actually caused great upheaval. There was earthquakes and raging fires and floods and dogs and cats living together, and it was mass pandemonium. And this upheaval actually caused the volcanic upheaval of Mount Decitus. And this is a volcano that is very much active today. It hasn't popped its top for probably about 600 years. But it does frequently still smoke and steam, and there are frequent earthquakes. But all this entire archipelago is a part of this underwater mountain range that has kind of been forced up, with Mount Decitus being kind of at its center and its main dangerous feature. But people came here all the same. Their records say that they actually founded the city of Kajra on the coast of the Great Eastern Desert, and they left Kajra to come here and to this archipelago and found the Trepane City States. Again, here it is. In fact, probably much more closely followed. These people live an ancient lifestyle that nobody has seen in close to 3,000 years. Not quite as overly. They aren't a theocracy. At least most of them aren't. So it's not this overbearing religious state that everybody has to be following the religion. The religion is still active, slightly bent differently than what is seen in Arabashia. The landscape, it's much more Mediterranean here. There are, because of the volcanic ash, there are very fertile crops here, some small forests. Uh, it Does it the up in the mountains? There can be some snow and ice, but it's very light. It's not a frigid area at all, and it does have quite a bit of humidity blowing in off the sea. And so you've got this rich, fertile ground for farming, and each of these cities that was built here became their own city state. So they rule themselves. There are several large cities. There's Nacrius, Ferus, Gellius. All of these large city states are kind of meeting focal points for the smaller towns and farmers that live in the region. About once a year, all of these city states meet up in Nacrius, and they hold a great forum, usually to decide simple things. Maybe the town of Citadrus is causing problems for fishing or for trade traffic with the town across the water in the nearby island of Argepios. So if Citradus and Argepios are having trade disputes and fishing disputes, then that can be hopefully hashed out in a diplomatic matter at this meeting at Nacrius. If that is not capable, then these city states, each of them, do have their own armies. And it is not an unknown situation for these armies to go to war with one another. Now, what is known about the Trepane City States, nobody's really tried to come in and invade. Arabasia, of course, is aware of the Trepane City States. They're their closest neighbor. Um, but they haven't gone in to take them over. Mostly Arabasia's rulers just don't really see the point. They recognize the volcano for what it is, and they can't really honestly understand why anybody would want to live beneath a ticking time bomb. But the people of the Trepane City States do, and they live quite well, and none of them have been hit by a pyroclastic flow yet. So the gods must be looking in on the Trepane City States with favor. um, Whether or not that's true is really a question for the ages. But sooner or later, Mount Destus will blow. Now, what is known when these city states do go to war with one another, their warriors are known to be fierce, and small numbers of their forces can equal thousands that a similar force would be able to land on their shores via ships. Um, this, of course, is whether or not their forces are better equipped or better trained is up for question, but they definitely know the archipelago islands much better than any invading force would. And so they are known for tactics of using choke points, of making sure they have higher ground, the essentials of knowing the terrain that an invading army may not. Um, they know how to climb a mountain that is made of volcanic glass without injuring more than half of their forces. Whereas an invading force that would try to come in is going to lose a quarter of their people due to injuries of just accidentally cutting themselves on the rocks. So the Trepane City States really have a unique position, and they have the means of protecting it with fiercely loyal troops. So that is the Oases and the Trepane City States and Tal Afatra. Next time, we will be moving further south and getting into Arabasia proper. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.